All right, so today is Wednesday, March 23rd, and I got my Sharp WG-S30 from my brother-in-law who brought it from Japan. Um, and my first impression was my first reaction was how small it was. It's actually the size of the actual notebook itself is smaller, in fact, than my Kindle, even though the Kindle has this shell cover on it. It still is smaller, but the screen is actually bigger than the Kindle. But as you can see right off the bat, the bummer is the screen is in fact really dull and just not visible. Just comparing it uh, with the Kindle Paperwhite. Yeah, admittedly, the Paperwhite, this is multiple generations down. I mean, this is a new device too, but their decision to use, I think this is not even a true e-ink. I think it's actually an LCD, just like a really low power LCD, as opposed to the Kindle, which I think is a true e-ink screen. But even without the Kindle has a backlight, but even without the backlight, it's just like night and day. Like you can see the difference, and then just in how the Kindle is just not reflective at all. This screen is just completely reflective, as just positioning the camera over like this, and it just makes it even harder for you to see what's on the screen. So that's a kind of a pretty big disappointment. And I knew going into buying this that the screen had those issues because I've seen plenty of videos and whatnot. But I was just hoping that it wouldn't be as bad. And of course, experiencing how my Kindle is, I just kind of expected that the screen technology would be up to speed, at least somewhat up to speed. But this is like maybe even worse than the first generation Kindle screen. Um, it might be equivalent in the contrast, but just the fact that the screen is so contrasty just makes this sharp reader uh, difficult to see. But it's not all doom and gloom. Obviously, everything it kind of advertised to be is uh, is there. So you know, uh, just looking at this, I mean, it is visible. So you can write, and it's not like it's completely unviewable. But the biggest bummer is that would have been all fine if it had a backlight. Like a backlight would have totally, I think, would have helped a lot with this. In that, like when I got this Kindle Paperwhite versus the Kindle Touch, not only is the screen in general more white, not this grayer color. This grayer color is similar to what the previous generation Kindles were like. Um, but not only is that white, it has that nice backlight that you can turn on when it's too dark, or even at night, and it just lights up the screen really nicely to where it's just a pleasant reading experience even when it's dark. This is just It's just, if there's not enough light, it's just impossible to use this notebook. And in all fairness, it just like a paper notebook, it's meant to be used with when there's plenty of light. And me personally, I would recommend, even for myself, just kind of advising myself to not use the backlight situation so much. Even for my Kindle, I even though I do use the backlight a lot, I have the afterthought that, well, maybe I should just read it in when there's plenty of light around, or under a lamp. Of course, this is daytime right now, so it's completely bright. But this, even just if it's a little dim or a little bit of dark room, it's just almost unusable. Like it's impossible to write in effectively. I mean, you can, but it's just not a very pleasant experience at all. You just need a nice lamp on top of it. And that said, if the lamp is obviously right on top of the screen, it's gonna reflect like crazy, and you're not gonna see anything. So that's a big weakness for this whole thing. I mean, just usability weakness. The pen itself, like writing, is actually really pleasant. Um, it's very responsive, and the tip glides fairly well. So um, it is really a nice writing experience itself. It's not like a Wacom thing where I thought it was a digitizer, but this pen is basically just a rubber tip, and that rubber tip basically, um, when you press it, I think it's like the Matrix type touch display. It's not really a touch display, but it relies on this sharper point to be actual to actual sense the touch. So if I put my hand on it, my palm on it, it's not gonna mark because it's just not sharp enough. But if I use my finger nail and I kind of scratch along the surface, it'll actually write. So basically anything with a tip, with a smooth tip, would be able to write on the screen. And of course, you have the erase function, which is nice. So that the actual writing, I wrote a couple journal entries, and that the writing process itself is nice. It's just the viewing situation is bad, and the viewing situation, I guess I wouldn't trade one for the other so much. I guess this thing is meant primarily to be a writing thing, a writing tablet of sorts. So that it focuses on that, and it does that really well. It's um, just looking at the screen though is not very nice. And the functionality, all the functions are nice, and they're not extensive, and um, they're not there's nothing super complicated in all the functions. It does have like copying and all that stuff in the menu system. In the fact that it's completely in Japanese and a lot of kanji there makes it hard for me to navigate it. But once I get used to it, that shouldn't be a hard thing. But the templates you can import and whatnot, I started to try and do some of that, but it feels like a little bit of a pain, and I almost don't want to go through with it. Like putting in my script templates and then using this to fill out the script templates. That was kind of hoping to really do that, and I'll still might be able to do it. It just feels like reformatting it to the screen size and then figuring out how to import it might be a little pain. Um, and the fact that the screen is so dull, it kind of doesn't excite me to get into that mode. Whereas I would just pull out my phone and just use my phone because I have all those templates on my phone, and the Note 4 obviously has a pen, and I can use that to write out my notes for those particular templates. So this notebook would mostly be for like journaling, or like mapping, and draw some simple sketches or outlines. Um, but my enthusiasm for it is a little lower than originally, and I would hope the next generation would have a more better contrast. I mean, this is already, I believe, the third generation, and I'm very surprised that the screen is not much better than in this third generation than probably the previous ones, or it looks like it's not much better. And the fact that it doesn't have a backlight, like I would imagine a backlight is a big thing on the wish list. But you can see, like, even pictures just look so much great. Just the granted, the Kindle is a more expensive product, and technically the Kindle does a lot less than what this um, Sharp notebook can do in terms of writing. Obviously, the Kindle doesn't do any of that. Um, so it's just kind of this trade-off, and I wish it was just these two devices were just like one device, and I could actually write on my Kindle. That would just be incredible if I could just do that on my Kindle, and that even if it's this small size, I wouldn't mind. So that's just kind of an intro of the Sharp WG-S40, and I'll probably make more formal videos of operating it. So.